Oh, guess who's hanging out with you on a Tuesday morning? It's your favorite Average Good podcast. You know what? Just hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies, and we have a lot to discuss because there are a lot of Americans in our national team player pool that made some noise, Chuck, and some were better than others. But before we get into that, how are you doing? I feel like I haven't seen you forever. Now that we're going live on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Golazo America YouTube channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're switching it up, having some fun here. Where have you been?
Well, one, I love the switch up. Tuesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. That sounds great to me. So I'm pumped up, and I'm doing great. I had to go to my kids' school this morning and see them be able to break down the human body, which was awesome. And now I'm excited to talk shop with you. How do you feel about the move?
Oh yeah, I love it. I will say that the Thursdays when we went late, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, that cut into my coaching time for my Bad News Bears team, my U14 girls team. We are awesome. I love coaching them. We have our first spring league game this upcoming weekend, and we're working on third person running, right? So actually I should say it like this. We're trying to work on the run initiating the pass, because right now at this age and even younger, right? You the pass and you're like, oh, they're going to pass. Now I'm going to run. So it's trying to unlock and get them out of that habit of waiting for the pass to be made before they run. It's a lot of fun stuff, Chuck. It sounds boring.
How old are the kids right now?
They're 13. Honestly, this should be something that they should know before, but they didn't get
by 10, 11, right?
They just didn't get the right. They weren't in the right environment to learn that consistently. I'm trying to be very diplomatic here.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
So anyway, that's what we're working on this week ahead of our first game. We've moved up a division, so we're gonna start to cut our teeth against some better competition. I'll let everybody know how it goes. Anyway, let's get into the show, Chuck. All right, Americans abroad. Let's get into some notable performances, and there's one real standout one. Johnny Cardoso goes to the Bernabeu. No, sorry, they were at home. Betis, sorry, they're playing against Real Madrid. I'm just so excited. He scored against Real Madrid. Unbelievable scenes. And Betis win. Betis, sorry. They won. Yeah. Betis won 2-1. Big win. And Madrid not looking great ahead of their clash against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. But Johnny had a goal this one. He maybe could have been man of the match. I thought he was solid everywhere else on the field as well. But Isco had an assist and a goal, so Isco ended up getting man of the match. Matt Turner made his fourth appearance. Let's go, Matt. In a 3-1 win versus Millwall in the FA Cup. Gio Reyna started his second straight Bundesliga game in the Black and Yellows 2-0 win versus St. Pauli. Jedi Robinson scored the winning goal, the decisive goal in a penalty shootout against Manchester United in the FA Cup. Congrats to Fulham for moving on. Alex Zendejas still doing the business. Recorded a goal and an assist in 3-0 win for Club America over Toluca. He now leads all of Liga MX with 10 goal contributions. Also, I did want to give a shout out to Chris Richards because I thought he was immense in his game against Millwall. And those games are tricky, right? When you're playing a lower division team, Millwall, feisty. We almost saw Mateta loses. I mean, that guy could have died with a kick to his face. If you haven't seen that, I don't even know if you want to go watch it, but he's going to be fine. But if it hit him more square, it could have been real trouble, but he ends up having some ear stuff. 25 stitches, I believe. So that's the boot up to the face. But I when I think about Chris Richards, sometimes those games can be a little tricky in the FA Cup because the lower division team, this is their Super Bowl. This is their Champions League final. This is their chance to take some scalps of a bigger team. And those games can be trap games, right? Where you should beat these teams, but those aren't always the easiest to play in. So I was really impressed with Chris Richards overall. Of those players, let's talk about Johnny first. We got to give him his flowers, Chuck. Your thoughts on Johnny Cardoso?
Yeah, I actually rewatched the game last night just so it was really fresh in my
What
my
a nerd
mind.
you are.
I know. Sometimes I have to nerd it out. But I was specifically just watching his movements and his touches and his thought process when he has the ball, when he doesn't have the ball, in and out of possession. And I see a comment here from Josh Wallace in the YouTube chat. I remember Jesse Marsh mentioning on the show that Cardoso needed to be more progressive. He's shown he's made that improvement in his game. He absolutely has. I mean, from the first minute of the game, he could have easily passed sideways, the easy pass, right? The safe pass, and he's playing between the lines forward. You absolutely love the fact that he gets on the ball and he's constantly looking to go forward. That needs to happen. That's how you really start to hurt opponents, is by making them feel that, oh, we're always under pressure. But what I will say is, if there's an area of his game where he struggles, if we're talking about him being a lone six per se, right? If he's going to be asked to be the number 6, a defensive midfielder, and by himself, because Pochettino likes to play with 2 more advanced midfielders, maybe one more 10 and one more 8 qualities, but at least 2 that are in front of the lone 6. He struggles when it comes to closing down the ball and winning the challenges, right? Where Tyler Adams exceeds. Where he's really good is he anticipates second balls. There were some plays where he takes the ball down. He did an Ole over Modric. He'll win the second ball. He anticipates it and then wins possession and then goes forward and finds the outlet. That's where he really has excelled. But in terms of winning the ball back, like tackling and chasing down, that's not his strength. So that's where I saw, okay, if he's asked to be that lone 6, he might struggle a little bit. But 87% passing in this game. He connected on 33 passes, 64 touches. He was involved. He got 2 shots. One was a header, of course. I was really impressed with what he was able to do in terms of, playing against a Luka Modric and Tchouaméni. Tchouaméni absolutely tackled him a couple of times and puts him in some dangerous challenges. But I'm really pleased with what I saw from him overall.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And these are good options, once again, in our midfields with Tyler Adams. Now, speaking of Tyler Adams, he played 120 minutes for Bournemouth, and they won. They won the FA Cup. They're now going to face Manchester City in the quarterfinals. But when I start to think about Tyler Adams playing extra minutes, it makes me a little nervous, Chuck. They've got 2 more games before they have to show up for the Nations League.
Don't even throw that stuff out here, because let's just say Tyler Adams is feeling great. This is the best he's felt for as long as I've known him. I mean, since he was playing at Red Bulls, right? This guy he's back to his best. He doesn't even think about his hamstrings anymore or his lower back. Like, I think he's finally figured out his body.
We have Chuck Davies, everybody. He is the Tyler Adams whisperer. He knows all of the inner workings of Tyler Adams' hamstrings and back. But they play away at Tottenham and then play home to Brentford before they've got to roll up in LA for the Nations League. And I just wonder, given how Andoni Iraola, the manager for Bournemouth, has managed his minutes up until this point. Now they don't have any games until the weekend, right? So there's no midweek action, at least in this particular week before the Tottenham game. So there's plenty of time for him to rest. But I just have a little bit of concern. I'm looking at previous injury history, and I just hope that he will be firing at all cylinders, because we need him in the midfield, and I want to see what it looks like with him in midfield under Pochettino. We still haven't had that luxury as of yet. Some other good news: Daryl DK got some more minutes for West Brom. That's exciting. Came off the bench there, second appearance, so coming back from his Achilles injury. Haji Wright coming back for Coventry, back into the team. He makes his re-debut, I would say, or at least is this his debut under Frank Lampard? And Coventry have been on crushing it. They're now back into contention for a playoff position, which is pretty exciting, and I think a redemption story not only for Coventry overall, but for Frank Lampard in general. So I'm curious to see, because Haji Wright's been out for a big portion of this, Chuck, how he can work his way back into the team. So it was nice that when he was eligible to play, he immediately got back onto the field. Didn't start, but they're going to ease him back in as a sub. Yeah, so that's 16 exciting.
Minutes. It's good. I mean, I always think of when you're out for a certain amount of time. I mean, his last match was November 9th, right? So you're talking about being out for a certain amount of time, then it's the rehab, and across that distance, you have to get fit again and get your sharpness back. And so the more time you can start to eat away, getting back on the pitch, 60 minutes is a lot in your first game back when you've been out for so long. So I'm hoping it just continues to increase, right, over the next couple of weeks. But that's a good sign, because I'm curious what Pochettino will think when Haji Wright is fit, scoring goals again. Where does he fit into this team?
Okay, I know there's some questions about Johnny in the chat, but I do want to bring Tanner Tessmann into this equation and this part of the conversation as well.
Mm-hmm.
He got a start again this past weekend for Lyon, and he played 70 minutes. He started 4 in a row, and there are 3 wins and 1 loss, and that 1 loss was the PSG, which PSG are a different gravy right now, playing really well under Luis Enrique. But I like that he's getting trusted by Paulo Fonseca in this instance, Chuck. So it's nice to see that, and he got the start over Nemanja Matic, who is really his mentor in some ways. And so maybe this is the time where that transition is starting to happen. I believe we talked about this before, but I want to bring him in because we were all wondering, is he now going to start again for Fonseca? And he did, and they ended up getting the W, which is nice. So as we answer these Johnny questions, I think we still should bring Tessmann into the equation because Tessmann has been, I thought that he was looked upon kindly. I for Pochettino when he came in and he played well, right? And so Pochettino singled him out as having a good performance.
He
so
really
I think
impressed.
Yeah, he did. So he's going to be part of it too. So I just want to make sure that because he's not just sitting on the bench for his club, he's actually playing. Then okay, let's bring him in because we know that Pochettino has already just.
I don't even think that's a question, Jimmy.
Right. Okay.
I think at this point he's automatic.
You think he starts next to Tyler, or at least he gets,
No. I don't think he's a starter. I think he gets called in. I think.
I agree with you on that.
Gets brought into the camp.
Right. Okay. So let's get to the questions then. But I just want to bring Tessmann into the equation of that because it could impact how we answer some of these. First one's from Sam. Jimmy, have we seen Tyler and Johnny together? I don't think we have either. He says, I don't think we have because Johnny started coming in after Tyler was hurt. There might have been some crossover at some point, but I don't remember them being on the field at the same time. When Tyler last played for us, was that the Nations League last year? Was that the last time he's played for the U.S. in the summer?
Yeah. Remember, because he scored the goal out, so they were managing his minutes. He went back and he got injured, and then he was out for forever.
He hasn't been back since.
He hasn't been back with Pochettino.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. That's crazy. He hasn't been part of the team for that long. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember a moment where they had to have some crossover, but maybe they have it. So what do you think the best pairing is? Let's say we did go with a maybe it's not against Panama, but maybe against Canada or somebody else, we go with a 6-6 or at least somewhat of a hybrid 6-6 because one of them could act as an 8 and will probably be asked to be an 8. Would you think do you go Tessmann or Johnny? I mean, you got Musah's in there too, but Musah. Well, we're gonna get into AC Milan guys here in a second. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think when you are looking at the opponent, if you're playing against a team that's maybe superior, and next thing you know, Pochettino probably thinks I need 2 defensive midfielders to anchor the back 4 if we're playing against a Spain, a France, teams that maybe jam up the midfield, have super talented players that like to come inside. Then maybe in Argentina, you're talking about the top teams in the world. Probably makes sense to play with two 6s or one a little bit closer to Tyler if Tyler's the lone 6. And in that case, if you're looking between Tessmann and Cardoso, the player that probably moves forward and probably fits that profile a little bit better is probably Cardoso, because you're not asking him to track and defend, and Tessmann the same thing. They're both not the go hunt, win the challenge, and be aggressive. They're more of I'll find the right spots. I think Tessmann has really come a long way when you're talking about the tactical IQ of knowing where to be, where to pick up loose balls, getting off his foot quicker. But I think Cardoso is geared a little bit better in terms of anticipation and then playing forward, finding the right spots. I think his game probably would help facilitate the game going forward a little bit more than Tessmann.
Okay, so the last game actually that Tyler played for the U.S. was against Uruguay in the Copa America. Tyler and Johnny were both on that team. They had one game where they maybe crossed over and played together at the same time. It was the Bolivia game.
I completely forgot about Copa America.
Yeah, same. I think we're all trying to delete it from our memory bank. But Yunus Musah actually came on for Tyler Adams at halftime of the Bolivia game, and then Johnny subbed on later for Gio Reyna. So they didn't actually play together at the same time. At least in recent memory, that's the last time there would have been an interaction between those two. All right, let's talk, though, about Yunus Musah. Obviously, he can be another option and one that we wouldn't be surprised to see for this game off of Tyler's shoulder. But right now, Milan's in a bit of a free fall under Sergio Conceição, Chuck. They lost 2-1 this past weekend, and Yunus Musah to Lazio, and Yunus Musah got subbed out in the 37th minute. And that's never a good look. And it wasn't injury related that we're aware of. And so I love that Sergio Conceição is trusting him, but it doesn't seem like it's, I don't know. This is a really difficult one because I feel like the conversation should really be generated around, does this guy need to just find one position and be awesome at that and try to be as awesome as he can at that position? Or does he still just want to be a jack of all trades and be very good at all those, but not excellent, you know? So I wonder if him playing multiple positions isn't actually helping him grow as a player. I don't know, man. I just think this is kind of the area we should explore because even though he's being trusted by multiple coaches, is he really taking those big, giant steps that we know that we hope that he's capable of?
In terms of what, though? What steps?
Well, I'm just in terms of like, if he continues to play multiple positions, can he ever truly become world-class at one position? Just be like, this is okay, coaches, I appreciate you trusting me, but I want to be a world-class 8. So I just need to be in an 8. That's where I'm fighting for minutes, and that's where I want to be moving forward. I don't know which one he likes to play the most. I think he just likes to be on the field, and I totally respect that. But I wonder if that's hindering him a little bit. Now, there's a big argument to be made that the more positions you play, the more well-rounded you are as a player. But I think to be truly world-class, you have to be kind of getting those reps in the same spot over and over and over. But maybe this is why there's room for discussion. That's why I'm kind of opening it up in a conversation in some ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically, a world-class player, you could play on, just as simple as playing on the right side or the left side and being able to be flexible because, you could see an Mbappe or a Cristiano Ronaldo having to play right wing or left wing. And next thing you know, they're the striker and they level up, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say you have to only play one position and that's the only position you can play if you're world-class. If you're world-class, you're world-class. If you have the talent, you have the talent. It's about how it's being brought out of you. And I look at Yunus Musah and, even the Milan players say, who's the player who can play all the positions? And they'll always say Yunus Musah because he's so good with the ball at his feet. But like we've talked about for a number of years now, what can Yunus Musah do in the attacking third if he's playing higher up the pitch? And he has to still develop a long way if we're talking about beating players on the dribble and then playing an effective cross, being a player on the dribble or creating a shot for himself. We've seen it in little spurts, but nothing consistent over long term of play. But if we're talking about playing in a deep lying midfield role, which we've seen him do too, then he's got to be able to spray the ball and play it in down the line, into the channel for the wingers. And we haven't seen that a lot either. A lot of his passing is really, 10 yards, 15 yards. So I feel like the emphasis has to be on him to be a little bit more aggressive going forward. But I think it's undeniable, no matter what coach has him, that he has the talent to do that, the potential, the upside, and he shows it, but he doesn't do it consistently.
Yeah, I think there's a comment too about hey, Weston McKennie, we praise him for playing multiple positions as well. I 100% praise Weston McKennie and Yunus Musah for playing multiple positions and be able to hold their own at a high level. No problem. But what I'm saying with regard to development, I think it still works against Weston McKennie in the same way. How can he truly be great at one particular position if he's being asked to play so many different roles? And yes, Chuck, to your point, being world-class, if you have it, you have it. Well, some of the decision-making that we're seeing from Yunus Musah right now isn't world-class. And sometimes you need to simplify your game. Less is more to then kind of get to where you want to go. And it comes down to rhythm and flow, right? Sometimes it's that recognition of, okay, now it's time for us to go. It's time for me to get the ball and do something. Or hey, we need to slow it down. I'm understanding the pace of the game right now. We're a little bit tired. Let's just keep it. Let's move the ball around. And maybe in 10 or 15 passes as we shift the other team, then we can get it and go. And so, I don't know. When I look at Milan, they don't seem to have a real identity in terms of, okay, when to slow it down, when to speed it up. And you need certain players to do that. And I feel like if Yunus Musah, who I believe has that ability, can be in certain spaces all the time and can consistently get better at that decision-making, then he could be a guy that could dictate flow. Dictating flow is very difficult, but it takes time and repetition. It obviously is a system that's built around that. So I just wonder if it's ultimately working against him. I just want to have this conversation.
So, Jimmy, have you played with a player that has an enormous amount of talent on the ball that you could play to him? He's not going to lose it, but wasn't cutthroat in the attacking third, and you felt like, okay, he's an important team player, but wasn't like a difference maker to win you matches.
That's a God, man. We could get into like the levels here of difference maker, because when you have a player where you can give them a ball in any situation and they can usually make the right decision from that, or at least don't lose the ball. That is a difference maker in some ways, because they're helping you transition. But I understand what you're saying in terms of a goal contributor. Yeah, of course. I'm not going to name names, but you have players where you also have players where they're playing outside of their comfort zone. Right. Mm-hmm. So maybe you have a possession guy who's very good at that, but for whatever reason, he's playing out wide. Well, we need somebody more dynamic out wide, but in that particular moment for the team, you just need somebody that can keep the ball and hold it for you and help the team transition and whatever. But to your point, he's not dangerous, right? Or consistently dangerous, maybe every once in a while, but that's not what you're trusting him to do on the field. But he's playing out of position, but you're like, okay, he's got value. He feels like a tweener. Like we have the ultimate tweener in Yunus Musah. And I don't know if that's necessarily, if I look at him individually, if that's necessarily helping him continue to take those big steps. We could argue, though, and I would accept this argument, that he's getting a shit ton of experience playing in big games against top opponents and playing with some top players, and learning from a coach, for better or for worse. You learn from your bad coaches too, that like, okay, this is how I need to survive in this particular system and to thrive. And that, for me, is a world-class ability as well.
Mind you, he's 22 years old.
I get it.
Right?
I get it. He's got, oh my God, the growth curve. We're still at the bottom of how much more he has to grow. Not maybe at the bottom, but we're working our way up to the top, because he's not into that where I think it all starts to click, where we could argue Christian Pulisic, it has started to click for him, right? He wants more responsibility. You can see he's more comfortable in what he's supposed to do and when, and Yunus isn't there yet. So the more experience he gets, the better he's going to be when he hits that kind of prime window. But yeah, I just went off on a rant. What time is it? Jeez, God, man, we get going on an early morning show and I just get cranking. All right, we're going to take our first break and call what you want. When we come back, we'll talk about another couple of our players, one including Gio Reyna, who got a second consecutive start. So excited about that. Come back and join us for that part of the conversation.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Welcome back into your favorite average to goodness show, podcast, whatever you like to call it. Call it what you want, right? You can call it whatever you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies, and I teased Gio Reyna. Let's talk about him. Second consecutive start for the black and yellow Borussia Dortmund. They took on Union Berlin and then St. Pauli, and now they have Lille in the Champions League this week, midweek. And Chuck, I don't know if he made the most of his opportunities. 2 wins, 2 much-needed wins for Niko Kovac, the new manager of Borussia Dortmund. But these are 2 bottom feeders, ultimately, in the Bundesliga. Union Berlin's 14th, St. Pauli's 15th. They're right outside the relegation zone. 2 good opportunities for Gio Reyna to really put a stamp on things against teams where he should, in theory, because they're not doing well this season, have more time and space. And it just didn't feel like he took that with both hands. And now with Julian Brandt coming back to health, I wonder if Gio's not going to be starting. I don't expect him to start against Lille in the Champions League knockout rounds. But yeah, your thoughts on his performance and his opportunity.
Well, one, it's good just to see him back playing.
It is.
Right?
It's nice.
He's healthy and he's getting some minutes. Back-to-back starts. That's a huge improvement from the past year. So, it's one of those things where, again, I feel like we keep beating this to death. He's got to move.
Yeah,
he has to leave Dortmund, and it feels like in ways they're trying to play him just to get his value up. And so we know he's not going to play over Julian Brandt. It's just that simple. So if they can continue to give him minutes and he have him contribute, they can get his value up, because he has to leave this summer. I think he knows it. I think the club knows it, and it's just about that time. So the unfortunate part is he wasn't able to really make a mark in either of those 2 starts, like you said. So I think he'll get called up this window, and then it'll be up to Pochettino to see where he fits and how he fits, and just what he needs to do to be a regular figure with the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, Julian Brandt, who had been playing in that number 10 spot for Borussia Dortmund under the striker and wingers, he had been hurt, but he should be coming back into the team against Lille this week. So we'll have to wait and see. And I'm curious to see how Pochettino manages that situation, because if you set a really high standard and precedent about what you need to be doing for your club team to get called in, Gio, in my humble opinion, though he started these 2 games, could fall outside of that standard. But we got to see him. Pochettino's got to see him in person. I think it's going to make a big difference. All right, let's pivot over to Matt Turner, because we got to give him his flowers. Definitely making the most of his time, especially of his cup games. 4 starts, 3 wins, 2 goals conceded, 17 saves. Expected goals against 3.43. He's only given up 2. So he's definitely ahead of the curve on that side of things. His coach, Oliver Glasner, said this: "It's not a gift. He's just deserving of his place against Millwall. I can see his ambition in training. He's always giving 100% in every single training session. He also deserves some games. He knew it when he arrived. We were always pretty clear. He always knew that Dean Henderson is the number 1 because he is doing an amazing job for us." Now, the FA Cup draw, I think, is a good one for Crystal Palace, with all due respect. They got Fulham. Now, Fulham just got Manchester United. That's not that hard these days.
Hey, but what a pen from Anthony Robinson.
Clean. Yeah. I mean, it's like he's done it a million times. So cool and calm. So yeah, Jedi, wear the captain's armband once again. It's been really fun to watch the leadership come over to Jedi. I wonder how that's going to trickle into the U.S. men's national team. It should be a net positive for sure. But for Matt Turner, and I'm glad that Oliver Glasner gave him some love and also kind of explained, hey, he knew what he was walking into when he signed for us. When I think about goalkeepers, when I think about Gio Reyna, when I think about Yunus Musah, when I think about any of our players, right, it comes down to trust. I wanted to have a big conversation about trust, Chuck, because even if you're coaching your U10s, or if anybody's coaching out there, there are certain players that you just trust. And how do they earn that trust? Usually it's because they might make decisions at the right time. There's some spatial or game or situational recognition that they have. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't have to coach that player. They knew exactly how to move in that situation. There's like an understanding, an instinct. And so if you don't have that trust from a particular coach, how do you earn that trust? And for me, obviously, it's just consistent, making good soccer decisions on both sides of the ball consistently. But for some players, that takes longer than others, because when I look at Yunus Musah, he did a couple back flicks. He lost the ball, in a recent game, and that's why he got subbed out. And it didn't look good for him. And so I use that as kind of a catalyst to this. But how does Matt Turner earn more minutes when clearly Dean Henderson's being trusted by somebody else? Same with Gio Reyna. How does he get in there?
There is no way. Only an injury and suspension. But this is the thing about Matt Turner. His hard work, his work ethic, his ability to fit into a locker room and be a team guy has never been in question. Never. This is a player who comes every single day to bring it. He understands that one day you could be at the top of the world and an injury can knock you off of it, and you got to be ready. And I think that's how he's always been since I've played with him as in his first year as a professional. He always wanted to do extra. He was always thinking about the team first, and everyone liked him. He got along with everybody. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's ever been in question that he wasn't going to be giving his max capacity every single time he's on the pitch. I think when he moved to Crystal Palace, which in the process when he was trying to move from Nottingham Forest, he knew he was number 3. He knew he wasn't going to play. He knew Nuno Espirito Santo had moved on from him, that he had to find a place, and Nottingham Forest weren't going to allow him to leave. So he was stuck until the end of the window when they said, okay, now you can move. By that time, every club that were possibly interested in him had already filled their void with a goalkeeper. It ended up that Crystal Palace were able to take him at the end of the window. So he figured, I'd rather be number 2 at Crystal Palace than never even getting an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup game if I stayed at Nottingham Forest. So all in all, he made the right decision based on those 2 opportunities. So I think he's making the most of everything he can, especially if Oliver Glasner is coming out and saying, hey, Matt Turner is bringing it every day. He's making Dean Henderson better. He's pushing him. But in the end, Dean's our guy. And whenever there's an opportunity to play Matt Turner, we will. that's as good as it can get if you're the number 2 at a club. So I think from that standpoint, you have to be happy where he is, given that that's his situation. And come the summer, Matt Turner is going to have to move somewhere to be the number 1. He knows it. The club knows it. So I think Pochettino also trusts in Matt Turner, given the other goalkeepers in the pool. So you just got to be, looking forward to this Nations League. Hopefully he has a strong performance, and then in the summer he'll get his move.
I'm a little disappointed that Crystal Palace's next FA Cup game, the quarterfinal against Fulham, isn't before the Nations League, just so he can get one more game in, right, to be sharp. It actually is going to fall in after the Nations League. But still the out-and-out number 1 for me. Ethan Horvath had a good game. They lost to Aston Villa in the FA Cup, but he was strong, made 7 saves. The expected goals against him were 3.5, and he only gave up 2. I thought he looked pretty sharp. Zach Steffen didn't look great this past weekend for the Colorado Rapids. Those are my 3 that I think will be considered for this particular pool of players. I think Matt Turner, again, will be the number 1. I'm kind of curious, though, Chuck, to throw it back to you. Where do you think Matt should go? Let's lose the pie in the sky once, because we know that he wants to stay in the Premier League or whatever. That might not be an option as a number 1. What's the realistic destination that you think would be good for him and also good for the club that he goes to?
I think there are a number of clubs who maybe will be competing in Europe, Europa League clubs that he could probably walk into. He could play in any of the top 5 leagues. So I think he needs to come down a little bit. So the Bundesliga probably would be a great fit for him. And if you're looking at the Bundesliga, anyone from right now, Frankfurt, Eintracht Frankfurt, who's in 3rd place right now.
Yeah,
that's a great place.
Wolfsburg, they're always hanging in there.
Yeah,
Mönchengladbach, Stuttgart's dropped off, but yeah, I mean there are some good clubs there that I think would be a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think he just needs to go to a place where he's going to get the opportunity to play. And Kevin Trapp is 34 years old at Frankfurt. In the backup, he had a tough performance in the Europa League that we were covering. So I think Frankfurt could be a great destination for him in terms of a top club that's still competing in Europe.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any kind of American connections, obviously, that we can lean into, because there's plenty of American owners around the top 5 leagues in Europe. Fiorentina would be a bad shout in Serie A. They've pretty good defensively this year, only given up 28 goals. Rocco Camiso is the owner there. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. All right, so
I was going to say, also add, he has a European passport, a Lithuanian passport, which helps him tremendously when you're going to a league that maybe has restrictions on foreigners. So that's a huge plus for Matt Turner when he's out there looking at these different clubs across the top 5 leagues.
Okay, I like that. That's going to help out a lot too. I wonder though, I'm sure he's on a pretty healthy wage. Not only would you move leagues, you probably would have to take a pay cut, and that's not always.
Oh, by the way,
it doesn't feel good for your ego when that happens.
Fallen Phoenix writes in the chat, is Turner even Bundesliga quality? Of course he's Bundesliga quality. Is that even a question?
That's why he has to go and prove it, man. He's got to go.
Jimmy, do you not think he's Bundesliga quality?
Well, I was suggesting he should go to Fiorentina and Serie A. And yes, if he's Serie A quality, then I think that he is Bundesliga quality. Yes, he's Bundesliga quality. I would say, though, it's going to be hard at Fiorentina. I just threw that name out there. But David De Gea, obviously, is having his renaissance with Fiorentina right now between the sticks for them. Yeah, he's Bundesliga quality, but again, he's got to go there, and then he's got to prove it. And right now he's the backup at Crystal Palace, and getting limited minutes and doing well with his cup games. And hopefully Glasner continues to roll with him, and he's just got to show up when he gets his opportunity. That's the same for any other player, regardless if you play in our player pool or not. If you're on the outskirts or on the whatever, the fringes of being in the starting 11, you get your chance, you got to take it. That's how it works. Can we just go back? That Serie A kind of sparked something, and I know we went Yunus Musah heavy on Milan talk. How concerned are you? This is for everybody. If you're listening, then you can drop it to us on any social media. how concerned are you from a scale 1 to 10 going 1, not concerned, 10 going, holy crap, the house is on fire, about Christian Pulisic? Only 1 goal in his last 10 games for Milan. He had 2 assists. He didn't start that game. That was against Empoli, who are not great. So 1 goal and 2 assists in his last 10 games for Milan. And Milan doesn't look good at all right now. So this isn't on him, but I'm just focusing on him in particular. How concerned are you about him? 1 to 10, Chuck. And everybody listening and watching, what do you think?
1 being not concerned at all, and 10 being, oh my God, it's on fire, watch out.
Yeah.
A 3.
A 3? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel, as our player whisperer, Chuck, as you've clearly demonstrated, knowing the inner workings of Tyler Adams' back and hamstrings, and knowing where Matt Turner is feeling about things and what he knows he needs to do, I thought you gave a little insight. So a 3. Now it's been acknowledged by Conceição, and we've heard also that Christian's been carrying a bit of an injury for a while, so that would kind of fall in line with the lack of quote-unquote production. Also, the emergence of Joao Felix as being their kind of top choice attacking-wise when he hasn't merited that type of respect, in my humble opinion. But a 3, okay. I'll roll with a 3.
Yeah.
But I'm maybe I'm at a 5, but I feel more comfortable with a 3.
You throw in a knock, you throw in a new manager who clearly doesn't get it yet. So it's not just down to Christian Pulisic. It's the manager. Conceição just it hasn't been good. So in the past couple of managers, right after Pioli left, they won the Scudetto, and then next thing you know, the choices for managers have not been strong, right? And I don't think anyone would have thought, okay, that's the right guy for Milan as well. So I think Zlatan's under a lot of pressure as well for bringing in these coaches and trusting them to move Milan forward. So I wouldn't clearly point out Christian and say that his form is dropped off because, his confidence is shot, or I think it's more about his knock. I think the coach and the tactics is completely off. And again, like you mentioned, Joao Felix, Rafa Leao, Santi Jimenez, a number of players aren't playing at their best. The tactics aren't getting the most out of these players. So I think Christian will be good. I'm not worried about Christian.
Well, apparently there's word that he'll be signing a new deal soon. Tejani Reinders did sign, got a contract extension. Christian seems to be next in line from what we understand. And that Theo Hernandez and Rafael Leao could be on their way out, which means they could be building around Reinders and Pulisic. And they should. Those guys have been probably their best performers throughout this season.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll keep everybody up to date on what we're hearing with regard to that. All right, let's move back to the center back situation. We had Chris Richards, who was immense for Palace and has been very good since getting himself into the team. And they've had a real change in just the results, consistently getting results since he's been back in the team. It's not all down to him, but I think he's been a big part of getting that consistency. Mark McKenzie, I thought that injury concern that he had a couple weeks ago was going to be bigger than it is. He's back in the team for Toulouse and playing well and being solid. Do you think those two guys, for me, I think this is what we're going to see. We're going to have Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie in the back line against Panama in the semifinal of the Nations League.
I would be shocked if that wasn't the case.
Right. Yeah. I guess if Joe Scally, is Joe Scally going to be the guy that's next to them? Or do you shift it and make Tim Ream's been playing left back for Charlotte? Is Tim Ream's going to get called in? Do you think he starts? Or is it time to move on from Tim Ream?
I don't think he starts. And this is the question I was going to ask you, Jimmy. Tim Ream was initially brought in, right, because he caught form at Fulham, but before that, I'd say it was based on experience because the team was so young and they needed someone who had experience. He was a captain at Fulham, and then he went on this run of being incredible, right? Because he was out of the picture for a while, and then he starts and he's the best center back that we have. Now this group is a World Cup in. They have experience. They're all playing in Europe for the most part. That experience that you typically get from Tim Ream, that's not important anymore, right? Holding people accountable. You have guys who can do that. Do you think he's still needed as much given his talent where the center back pool is? or do you think, he's still important given that his experience, even if he's not playing?
Well, when I think about your World Cup experience, none of the center backs, okay, Ream played, Walker Zimmerman played, Cameron Carter-Vickers played. Like Richards, McKenzie, they're not the ones with the World Cup experience.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're saying, though. I mean, Jedi, obviously captain of Fulham. He has the experience. Matt Turner behind him. He's got the experience. Tyler Adams, like everybody else around them.
Serginho Dest, who's creeping back to play now.
So basically they'll be cushioned with World Cup experience around them. But would it be nice to have, especially in the center, as a former center back myself, when you're leading a lot of the communication, when you're the eyes of the field, because sometimes when you're higher up the field, especially if you're trying to hold a higher line, which is what I think Pochettino wants to do, right? At times, be very aggressive.
But that's not Tim Ream's strength then, if you're talking about higher line.
Well, yes, it's not. But I think in terms of athleticism, but in terms of smarts and intelligence and positioning, I think he's awesome at that. So so you can't trust a World Cup experienced Matt Turner to help you with that when you're playing higher up the field, because he only has so much involvement. All that communication has to come from your center backs, and you got to put people in good positions to make that happen. Not to say that Mark McKenzie and Chris Richards can't do that, but they don't have that experience at the highest of levels.
Yeah, but none guys the World Cup either. So,
right? No, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Right? It's just this whole group went into World Cup and no one had World Cup experience, and now you're flipping it and saying most of the group has World Cup experience and a few don't, but you're only adding more talent to the squad that hasn't had World Cup experience, and then you have a manager like Mauricio Pochettino who's getting his first opportunity to manage in a World Cup.
Yeah, it's fair. And there's a good shout here from Des in our private chat that Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty have Champions League experience where Tim Ream doesn't, and that should have some value. 100%. We should update you that Austin Trusty came out after 27 minutes in Celtics game this past weekend. I don't know what that means. We don't know how long term that is, but for someone who was right there on the cusp, I think, of potentially being looked at and being brought in, that could be really disappointing. But he might be looking at the Gold Cup anyway as his chance to really break into the team. So yeah, I just wanted to have, or at least explore the experience side of it, because it clearly matters. The comfort level you have in high pressure situations, the more you're comfortable in those, the better off the whole team is going to be in solving problems, especially when you have, in transition or whatever it may be. The more reps you have in those moments, the better. I'm just kind of curious as to where Scally fits into this, because if you're going to go with Scally, who's been quietly solid, there's nothing much to say one way or the other about him. Though I feel like Jesse said something that he doesn't play. He's just not as aggressive. When Jesse was back as our co-host and not the manager of Canada now, but I remember him taking a shot at Joe Scally that he wanted more from him. But in this system, he's being asked to sit a little bit. I think that McKenzie and Richards will start. They're probably the two sharpest center backs in the pool at the moment, who are playing regular minutes and looking good. And McKenzie can slot in on the left side, and Scally could be on the right, and Richards could sit in the middle. And then you have Jedi and whoever you want on the right side. Could be Weah, could be Musah, could be a whole host of options. Yeah, it's going to be interesting times. Again, though, Chuck, it's funny because before it felt like we were having conversations is like, wow, who's really going to be? And now we have plenty of options in multiple positions. This is a good thing.
This is the thing, Jimmy. This is the last time that Pochettino will have his full squad competing for a trophy before the World Cup. This is the last time. No? He won't have the full squad.
Well, yeah, because you missed the Juve guys and potentially Gio. Though I think Gio won't be with Dortmund in the summer, so he could be available. However, if you go into a new club.
You think Christian's playing Gold Cup?
I think it depends on the. Yeah, that's a good time to give these guys rest. But you're also trying. This is the only time you're going to have the group together in a somewhat similar environment to the World Cup itself, right? Where you have a couple week lead up into the camp or a camp into the tournament. Then you're around each other in a group stage and you're working through kind of the rhythm of what that looks like. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting balancing act. This isn't isolated to the U.S., but do you want to give your players that rest? Because if you don't give them that rest over the summer, where are they going to get it leading up to the World Cup? They're just not going to get it at all. Yeah, I think we could have a mixed squad in the Gold Cup. Yeah.
Yeah, so in doing that, I think the only player that is probably just coming back that probably won't feature in this is Serginho Dest. So that's the only question mark, is what does he do with Serginho Dest and how does that change the system? And because Serginho Dest isn't going to do what Joe Scally does. That's for damn sure. Right. So
no.
I think that'll be interesting to see does he put Serginho Dest in that right wing position? If you had to choose between Yunus Musah and Serginho Dest, is that the competition? So just curious how Pochettino sees the team.
I agree. This is going to be an interesting roster, not only for the Nations League, but also for the Gold Cup moving forward. And I think a lot of it could be dictated by the health of players and who's available and who's not. All right, we're going to take our last break and call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to pivot into trigger who you want. And we know that our loving community loves this segment as well. We'll obviously talk some MLS as well, as week 2 has been finished in the league. All right, yeah, don't go anywhere. We got a lot to talk about.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1.
From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
Whoa, that was awesome. Welcome back
Yeah.
into Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside Charlie, and we want to give an update on Big Tones, Tony Miola. He is seeing the doctors this week to kind of get a plan for what things look like moving forward. I talked to him yesterday. Spirits high, energy high, just wants to get kind of more official understanding of his output for the foreseeable future, but he's excited to be back. He's missing everybody. He's missing people trying to get Charlie triggered, and let's continue to make that happen. But everything's on the up and up for Big Tones, and we hopefully will see him back on the show very, very soon. But we wanted to give him some love. We miss him, and I wanted to give everybody an update on how he has been doing. All right, so Chuck, it's trigger who you want time. But before we kind of get into that, I want to give people some time to come up with the best comments to trigger you in particular. But MLS is in week 2. And in the Jimmy Conrad derby, this was 2 of my former clubs, Sporting Kansas City and San Jose Earthquakes, battling it out.
I called it.
The Quakes going to Kansas City, Bruce Arena, taking down Peter Vermes and Sporting Kansas City 2-1. You did call it, yes?
Sporting Kansas City are terrible.
Oh, jeez.
What are they going to change? When is, like, remember when Sporting Kansas City had like a top team? They were competing. Everything, the crowd was into it. The supporters were fantastic. And they were always seen as like one of the competing clubs. They were seen as like
that feels like 10 years ago, to be honest.
Right?
Which is, well, they were the 2013 MLS Cup champs. Maybe it was 10 years ago.
No, it went way longer into, I'd say into like 2018, right? 2017, 18, 19.
Yeah.
They finished second in the West in one of those. I think they maybe won the West. But it's just such a sad story to see where they are over the past 4 seasons of them just like slowly becoming decrepit. So, it's almost when is that time for them to move on so they can, I mean, they brought Mike Burns into the organization.
Yeah, that's one of Peter's friends.
Yeah.
You bring in who you trust, right?
They've had some terrible hires over the time and look where they are now. So it was pretty clear to see that Bruce Arena has the San Jose Earthquakes going in a different direction, and Sporting Kansas City, unfortunately, is the same club it's been over the past couple of seasons.
All right, so some other surprising teams, I would say Vancouver Whitecaps, baby, beating the LA Galaxy at home. Brian White scored again. He scored against Costa Rica as well. He's got 3 goals in 4 games in all competitions this season. Do you think? Nah, you don't think you'll have any chance getting into the Gold Cup roster, Chuck? I'm just putting it out there. Just talking to American strikers in MLS. You got Jordan Morris, Brian White, Jesus Ferreira, Vasquez, Ajimon.
Yeah, Brian White is one of those players who can be super successful in MLS, but his game does not, in my mind, translate to the U.S. men's national team. So I think he's doing a terrific job. I think he's probably overproduced what many people thought he would in terms of his MLS career as a striker, from the Red Bulls to Vancouver. I think he makes great runs. And in this game, just dunking on the Galaxy. But him playing for the U.S. men's national team, I don't see him fitting into the plans.
All right. So how about Mikey Varas? We got another clean sheet for San Diego FC. Early Coach of the Year candidate, Chuck. What are we saying? Going to give him his flowers? Going to try to trigger you? I'm going to try to trigger you. No, not going to happen. San Diego 0-0 in their home debut. No, he's not biting everybody. He's not biting. He's not. I tried. He's not biting. Okay, let's go to some other surprising teams. I'm actually surprised Nashville haven't looked good. They haven't scored a goal in their first 2 games. Nashville SC. So
it hasn't been a good run. BJ Callahan.
BJ Callahan.
Yeah, it hasn't been good.
Yeah, it hasn't. It hasn't.
Because I called the first.
Haven't scored a goal.
No, I called the first game with the Revs traveling to Nashville, and very underwhelming. Nashville.
Oh, you know who else falls into that? New England Revolution, very underwhelming. Houston Dynamo, not look good either. They just lost to Inter Miami. They didn't even have Messi, and I thought Miami looked pretty solid, all things considered.
Wait, you say underwhelming? What did you expect given last year?
What are we talking about? Revolution? Are you talking about the Revs?
Yeah. They couldn't be underwhelming.
This is exactly where I thought they would be. There's no underwhelming there, but
no, it's not underwhelming. If anything, you got to be like, oh wow, they've improved defensively because they're not leaking goals left and right.
Right.
But they're
another team that hasn't.
They're not an Eastern Conference challenger for Supporters Shield or anything like that. And let's say playoffs. If they don't make playoffs, there should be wholesale changes throughout the whole soccer operations, right? Because this is just further proof that things haven't been done the right way. But we'll see. I mean, it's a long season, and they've made improvements from last season. Not that is a big, tell-all sign or hard to accomplish, but this season they have to make the playoffs, or it's doomsday for a lot of players.
Yeah, 3 teams haven't scored so far, and it's New England Revolution and Nashville and St. Louis City, who also haven't given up any. St. Louis City, 0 goals for, 0 against, 2 draws. Way to go, Melberg. He's the manager there. So the big surprising teams for me, San Jose Earthquakes for sure. For us that had been kind of buying into what Bruce Arena's been doing for a long time, not surprised, but I'm sure he's excited to get off to a good start. Of course, Philadelphia Union. Right, you get rid of longtime coach Jim Curtin. You bring in Brady Carnell, and they've got 8 goals so far in their 2 games and have looked pretty dynamic going forward. What's interesting is when I think about the New England Revolution or any of the teams that haven't scored yet, I'm like, wow, how many weeks is it going to take them to score 8 goals? It could take them over a month to score the goals that Philadelphia have already scored in their first 2 games of the season. And then Columbus Crew, I've been impressed without Cucho Hernandez. Wilfred Nancy has done a nice job of doing what he's got to do to get results, which I think speaks to the quality of a team if you can still dig that out. So Columbus Crew 2-0, Philly 2-0. You got the Quakes, Whitecaps, LAFC are the other 2-0 teams. What do you think? No Cucho, no problem for Columbus.
Yeah, I just watched Columbus too, and they played beautifully. They absolutely played beautifully. They just did what they needed to do to win against the New England Revolution, but they absolutely played beautifully. I give so much credit to what Wilfred Nancy has done there to give everyone the courage to play, selecting the right players. It's an impressive team, and I think it's impressive how Wilfred Nancy has been able to, get the most out of a Max Arson, a Mo Farsi, right? Who were these players? And all of a sudden, they have the ball. They can beat guys 1v1. They know when to keep the ball and circulate it. They know when to just drive forward and make runs in behind. You lose a piece like Cucho Hernandez, you think this team's going to fall off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. And Diego Rossi still can play as that false 9. He can play on the wing. I think they're going to splash some cash in the summer to bring in a number 9. But Jason Russell Rowe, you see him, and he's had success at the second level, right? The MLS Next Pro. And I think he had scored some goals last year. I think Wilfried Nancy believes that this kid can maybe go somewhere. And, he's a Canadian international as well. He scored a great goal. I think he still has a little bit more in him. So they probably have a good runway. They're not in a rush to panic to bring someone in. They want to bring in the right player. And so, they're off to a great start.
Yeah, 2 goals in 2 games for Russell Rowe, 22-year-olds. The future's bright, and I'm sure our former co-host Jesse Marsh is licking his lips about the talent that he's at his disposal right now. Some top young Canadian players. All right, let's get into, as promised, trigger who you want. We got some questions and comments from our loving community that are going to try to trigger, hopefully Chuck and not me. I'm a little steadier than Chuck. Dalton says, Chuck, do you think Tottenham initiate the transfer clause they have for Johnny Cardoso this summer? He fits into the roster based on their needs.
I do. I think they do initiate it. When you score against Real Madrid, on top of that, that only helps your stock. It only shows that you're capable to play in the biggest matches against the biggest opponents. So, yes, I think it's probably a clause that is not too crazy either. I absolutely see Tottenham taking this because it is a bargain, I think, given how he's been able to play this season in La Liga.
Yeah, I just wonder how they utilize him. You have a couple players that maybe, Bergvall, they have Bergvall who's been getting a lot of minutes, the 19-year-old Swedish international. I like his game a lot. They're not like for like players, but yeah, I would love to see him get a crack at the Premier League, but I kind of like the run that he's on right now with Betis. It's just I think he's top 5 in minutes under Manuel Pellegrini for the club, and so maybe to dig in and be more of a guy they can count on moving forward instead of going into what looks like a dumpster fire at times under Tottenham, whether Postecoglou's in charge or somebody else. It just seems that's the Spurs way, but yeah, it'd be an interesting move. We're curious to see what he does over the summer. Some big moments, but obviously fun moments for Johnny in his career. All right, Matt says, Charlie, I love they're all directed at you, Chuck. If Brian White isn't U.S. men's national team ready, who is the backup for Josh Sargent at the Nations League?
Timothy Weah. That's the easy answer. Just because you have strikers underneath who maybe be scoring or scoring goals or in form, but if they're not at the level, they're not at the level. That doesn't mean they automatically get a call up if you're not at the level. Remember, Brian White was brought into camp last time, and he showed some things, but he showed that he's not ready yet. And that's fine. You can be successful in your club, you can be successful in MLS, but that doesn't mean it always translates to the U.S. men's national team. I think Chris Wondolowski is the perfect example of that. And obviously Brian White's not Chris Wondolowski in Major League Soccer, but you can be successful in the league, but that doesn't mean that you are the right option for the international stage.
Yeah, I don't think Brian White will get called in either. And I agree that Tim Weah is probably our best option. You could false nine it too. You could throw somebody up there that they start there, but then move based on the rotation of the ball where the ball is being placed.
Yep.
Not ideal per se if you had to do that, but an option where you could throw. We could put Weston up there. He plays multiple positions. He'd be fine. But yeah, he could drop in. Somebody could run in behind. You just whoever is in the front three. You just need one or two of these players to be a threat in behind at some point. If we're always playing in front of the back line of Panama, then they're going to continue to inch forward and take more and more space, but you always have to have a threat in behind so that you can create those pockets that you're looking to play through. So if we don't have that threat, it doesn't matter who plays it. It can be Sargent, Weah, Christian, Weston, Yunus, Gio. Somebody just has to be a threat in behind. If we don't have that, then it's going to make it a much more difficult game for us.
You could even play Gio as a false nine, right? I mean, that's as a substitute or something, right? But yeah.
All right, next question. Thank you for that one, Matt, and we appreciate you having your notifications turned on. Everybody that had their notifications turned on, because this is our first time in the new time slots. We'll be going at 10 a.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays moving forward.
I love it.
Outside of emergency podcasts, because we love emergency podcasts, and we'll be in LA for the Nations League. So make sure you tune in for those particular shows because we might be on location, in person. You can give us high fives while we're trying to get triggered. All right. So this one's from
yeah, go ahead.
He says, "Hey, Chuck, Wando had a far higher scoring percentage goals to game ratio for the U.S. men's national team than you, Bucko." He called you Bucko. I'm going to start calling you Chucko. That's amazing.
Let's compare the teams that I was playing against, the age I was, and when I started actually playing for the U.S.
Let's
men's
do that.
national
Let's
team.
compare.
Because, yeah, I don't even want to get into this conversation.
Got him. You got him, Chucko.
Yeah.
No, you going to give us a compare or what? You don't want to get into it?
I'm not even getting into it.
He's backing out. He said let us compare, and then he backs out.
I love Wando and great person, but let's not be crazy.
We got him. It took us an hour, but we got him. He's borderline triggered right now, but he's holding it in.
Oh Lord!
Urias got him there at the very end.
Yeah.
All right, that is our show. I'm calling it, Chucko.
Yeah.
Your new nickname, Chucko Davies.
All right.
That's amazing. Somebody called you Bucko. That's great. Yes, we're coming back to you on Thursday. It'll be 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 almost at 7 p.m. 7 a.m. Pacific. You got to get up nice and early if you're on the West Coast with me. If you want to catch this live, obviously you can listen to this on your podcast platform of choice. We recommend that if you ever miss a show. But turn on your notifications, hit like and subscribe if you're watching the Gloss America YouTube channel. And that was fun, Chuck. I can't wait to do it again with you on Thursday. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy the Champions League, Europa League.
For real.
And we'll see you back here very, very soon. We appreciate you. Later.